When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was in the bath, scrubbing my skin pretty hard, and my mum came in, was wondering what I was up to, and I was trying to make my skin clean. I attached being clean with being whiter and being dirty with being brown-skinned. I felt so Māmai knowing that that's what was going through my little head at that age. I look at my daughter now, she's got Tongan, Niuean and Cook Island roots, and there's nothing she should be prouder of than her beautiful brown skin.
How do you find your identity amongst tragedy and loss? I te wā kua wetea nā here ki tō ahurea. Your skin becomes a symbol of all you do not know. Me pēhea tō raranga I era aho ki te whakaatu I tō katoa.
Kia orana, ko Paige Ōmakimu tōku ingoa. I am first generation Australian from my Māngai side. Māngai is the most southern island of the Cook Islands, and Italian, Irish from my mother's side. My passion for my Pacific comes out with my artwork. When I'm in the kitchen, I definitely tap into all that Italian ancestral wisdom as well. I mean, I'm a bit like you in the kitchen. Not as good as you are.
Nobody's as good as you.
My family's definitely dealt with a lot of Māmai. When I was 4, my father committed suicide. It had an effect on us. We were always very highly strung as children. However, at the same time, felt safe as well.
Mom, the hairstyles.
90s, baby.
Oh, you are hapu.
I was raised by one of the most resilient, hardworking and loving mothers. We always had food on the table, healthy food to go to school with. She took us back to New Zealand so we could be in our grandparents' home, our father's home. When we moved back to New Zealand after Dad's suicide, we knew we were different to our cousins, and then went through primary school and came back to Australia. But then when we came back to Oz, we knew we were different from Australians. Everybody thought that I was Indigenous Australian. I tried to assimilate into Pākehā society. I dropped my Pacific Island last name altogether and took on my Italian last name. But then I didn't look white enough to hold a white surname, and I just, never felt exactly whole. To help reflect and retreat, I just started creating with my artwork. In high school, I would always gravitate towards the Pacifica Māori style, using our patterns and the beautiful flows. I was given a tattoo machine once I left high school. The boys would come over, I would fix up their sleeves or, put a little bit of my flavour onto their body. But I stopped that because I felt Māmai knowing that I hadn't been mentored correctly. I met my partner in 2016, and then in 2019, I was about 13, 14 weeks pregnant with my son, and we lost him. I think something like that can bring you closer or further apart from your partner, and that's definitely an experience that brought us a lot closer. I decided to enter a stall into Pacifica Gold Coast. That's awesome to have our people all in the one space, but often I stick out in a sea of our people. My features are a lot pointier, my skin's a lot lighter, and before I received my tātātau kauae, people would approach my partner and ask him his inspiration for this artwork. It's missing the slightest chance that possibly I'm Polynesian too. Pālangi and Pākehā and half-caste were words said by our people to separate us from them. Even the word plastic, that's a very, very derogatory word that our people use towards our own people. And that's definitely language that doesn't sit right with me. It's not me the one who's unhealed because I possess two bloodlines. Maybe the way the world perceives me, that's unhealed. In 2018, I met my tattoo mentor, Jason Tatinga. I've really been able to take my story, my journey, and just that whole transition into motherhood into my tātātau. This symbolizes the birth of my baby girl, and I specifically wanted her on my throat because not only did she come from the Māngai of my son, but also really helped me to step into my own power as a woman.
1, 2, 3. Woo!
After that was finished, I had my chin done. I was nervous. I was scared that I was gonna look like a Pākehā trying to be brown. And that's just, I guess, a fear that I've always had, that I'm an imposter or I'm a fraud trying to be something that I'm not. And when I received it, I looked in the mirror and I cried. And I finally felt like who I am. You know what? It's okay to be happy but unhealed as well. It's okay to be imperfect and healed.
The journey to self-healing is never truly over. Engari ka huri tō mamai hei wāhanga o tō rira. You will grow into the skin you wear until it sits exactly as it should. I runga i tō mana āhua ake.
The greatest thing that ever happened to me was growing up overseas. So I got to experience life with people who were like so successful. They always talked big. Nothing was ever an obstacle. And if you ever talked about your dreams and ideas, it was always about how you're gonna do it.
Inahia mātou mōhio ai. Was there a moment when we knew that in life, e kore mātou e whakaai, ki hatāmea ki ngā whakaro o waiake, that the limitations in their existence would not define our own. Inahia tēnā kākano whakatōkia ai, the one that tells our souls to soar towards greater heights. Nō mai rāno i roto i a tātou, e tohu ana kia tāia o mātou ake ao, te tautuhi i o mātou ake aupiki.
So the plan in 2017, by 2020 you will have a Billy T Award, don't have that, a Comedy Guild Award. I was going to say don't have that, but I actually do have that. 1 to 2 years of acting training, definitely don't have that shit. Oh, and modelling credits. I had abs when I wrote this, so that's why I put that down. In New Zealand, people's first instinct is why you can't do something here. It's this sort of collective attitude here in New Zealand that is tall poppy. A lot of people don't see it as tall poppy. You have to have the exact same struggle that I had, otherwise it's unfair. We don't realise in New Zealand that is not an attitude like anywhere else in the world. Being mistaken for being African and Indian from such a young age, that was a really hard thing for me growing up. I think at that point I'd completely lost any perception of like what a Pacific Islander or what a Māori was. You know, getting called the N-word by brown people did really muck up how I viewed myself. I didn't really have any cultural identity to the point where like I just didn't care. Left school and uni was the first time in my life where I felt like I can make the decisions for myself. Still very much forcing myself into the boxes of what I understood like a successful career could be. When I started studying property development and started working for property developers, that I then realised that I really could not be happy, even if the job pays really well. So I sat down and I made a list of all the things that I like doing that I could see enjoying a career in, with stand-up comedy being one of them. I was like, okay, how do you start stand-up?
So, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Joe Davis!
Lloyd Langford, a pretty famous like UK comedian, was emceeing my first ever gig. He's like, but I could see you being a superstar. And that was enough for me to just be like, shit, let's give it a go.
Does anyone here know much about Mormonism? So, we got one. Congrats, mate. Where'd you park your bike? Sorry, up front. Put mine next to it. But
literally haven't looked back once. I don't blame my family and friends for thinking I was going nowhere, because I was homeless for almost 2 months, living out of my car. And before that, I was living in a garage. It was 3, 4 long, and I'll say like lonely years, like just doing stand-up, doing nothing else in my life. I'm just constantly running around, having conversations with people that I'm not allowed to, you know, with TV producers, with like agents, with bookers. I was just starting those conversations myself, and they're all looking at me like, nah, bro, you're an open micer, you're young, you have to do your time before you're allowed to start that. And I was always like, no, it. I'm not gonna wait for anyone, because I don't have to.
Back. No, switch it, a bucket or belt line?
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know too much about comedy in New Zealand, like 7 Days is kind of the biggest place to be for a young stand-up comedian. You know, to get an opportunity here is pretty surreal. And so yeah, I guess that's just how much it means to be here, especially on the first episode of the season, because no one watches it after that.
You're good? You got me right. It's really fun.
4, 3, and cue.
A lot of national MPs got a bit panicky when they heard the terms trans-Tasman, because they think that countries should just be one of two sexes. 7 million or something people go between Australia and New Zealand every year. It's like the second busiest route in the world. The first busiest route is the one I had with your mum last night.
For me, it seemed like something that was so far out of reach not very long ago. So to be here, you know, kind of reminds me of like, you know, other things that may feel a little bit out of reach, how close they could be as well, and just to keep shooting for those opportunities too. Awesome work, man. Awesome work. Thanks for your help. Awesome. Appreciate it. I know exactly where I'll be in 5 years' time. By the age of 30, will be where I'm really starting to make that first splash in Hollywood. Either having directed or will be directing my first feature film. You know, starring in movies, Netflix special, start a tour around the world, building up all that body of work. Pretty ambitious. I also know I'll be rich as shit by then.
Overcoming limitations means finding out who you truly are. Mā te takahi I tōu ake huarahi I hua ai o ake whiwhinga, me te whakaau pūkenga te pāhauteatanga. Ko tā te āwhiro me te arotahi, he mōhio e ahu ana koe ki hea me te mātau wake me pēhea koe e tai atu ki reira. Finding out what it means to live a good life along the way.
I ki mai tētahi kraua Pākehā ki au. I tata taka au mai taku lime scooter, te rāwa I te mea. I ngana tērā kraua Pākehā ki te whana I au. Ākua kāre au I paku aha ki aia. Me tana ki mai, you're just a Black Mary. Ākua he kiritea, he mātaku kiri. Kauae tēnei e noho atu nei, ko Maumahara Lewis ka tēnei horse for tōku ingoa. I te taha o tōku mama, o tōku kuia, he uri ahau no manutūke, no te marae o te ohako. I te taha o taku kraua, no te iwi o te whānau ākai, no te whārua o Waituhi. Nā I te taha o taku pāpā, no ngā mautere o Hawaii hoki ahau. No reira he Māori ahau, he kanaka Māori hoki ahau.
Nā waikoe I poipoi I a koe e tipu ana. Who was there to keep you safe as you learn to fly? I ahu mai te mātauranga ihia ki te arataki I a koe I tō huarahi. And now, how do you express your commitment to the values you were gifted? I a koe ka puāwai ki tau I tūmanakohi ai.
Kare au I te mōhio ki tērā taha oku ki taku papa. I te mea, pepe tonu ana au, I te puana I te kōpu o taku whaia. I whāki atu taku mama ki taku papa I te hapu ia. Hoi anō I tērā wā, he whānau anō tōku papa. I kare taku mama I mōhio. Ki noiho taku mama ki aia, kei te pai, kaua koe māharahara, māku taku tamahine e whakatipu. Māku ia e manaki, haere koe, haere ki te mahi, tāu e pai nei, kei te pai taku tau māhine, nā taku mama, nā taku whānau, ahau, I whakatipu. Kare nui aku o hiotanga, mō tērā taha oku, mō taku taha kanaka Māori. Hoi anō, kei te ako tonu au, I era mō kōrero I taku whakapapa, koina tētahi o ngā mea nui ki au ko te whakapapa. Kua tīmata au ki te ako I te whakapapa I te reo anō hoki. Ai mōhio ana au ki etahi o ngā kupu. Kare anō ai kia matatau. Ai ko te mea nui ki au, kei te ngana au ki te ako I ngā kōrero mō tērā taha oku. I te taurua mana o te kaumāwha, I tino tipu tētahi hiahia ki roto I au, kia taa I ai taku mata. Tērā wā te kaumā whānui hopea taku pakeke. I rite au te whewhi kauae hoi anō I whakanautia taku tono taku mama, no reira I tatari au kia rite taku mama. No reira I te taurua mano o te kaumāwaru, ko I nā taku tau whakamutunga ki te kura, I tū te mokopapa tuatahi ki roto I tōku kāinga o Waituhi, o te whānau ākai. Me taku mōhio ka takoto au ki te takapau whāriki, ki te whāriki kiokio, kia tai ai taku mata. I really wanted to be a part of that history. Being able to receive my kauae along with my mum in one of our whare. That was probably the best day ever. And I had my mum, my nan, right next to me, holding me.
Holding her hand.
Holding my hand.
I've never seen anyone so excited about getting a kauae.
He nui rau atu i ngā whakapai me ngā kōrero hāhani a e tahi atu ki au mo taku moko kauae. Ai hara mai tētahi tāne Pākehā, tētahi kraua Pākehā ki taku wāhi mahi, ki mai ia, he a tērā, what's that on your chin? Ko taku whakahoki, ko taku moko kauae. Ko tāna ki au, oh, you mean a wins barcode. Te nui ngā te wā ka ngana hau, ki te mene ki te katara nei, i a rātou e whiu ana i e rā momo kupu. Te aroa i a hau, ka are paku aha e rā kōrero ki au, he wai te tuara o te rakiraki. Kei te mōhio au ki au anō, kei te mōhio au ki taku whakapapa, ki oku whenua anō hoki, no reira e kore e tāia e te tangata. Taku aroha nui ki taku ao Māori, te whati, te ahara nei mā te kupu hāhani. I te mea, e whakapono nui ana hau me whakanui tātou i te moko kauae, i te mataora, ahakoa pakeke mai, ahakoa rangatahi mai. Kei te whakaraura tātou i tēnei o a tātou taonga, no reira. Ki mai tētahi wahine Māori ki au. Who are you? What have you done to deserve that? Engari, hia noi hoia ki te whiu i e rā kupu whakaparahako ki au. Taku whakahoki ki aia, ko Maumahara ahau, no te tai rāwhiti ahau, kei te mōhio rānei koe, ki a koe anō.
When you let the opinions of others wash away like the tide, mā te au kati i ngā whakaaro tōraro i tō hinengaro ka tipu koe. Ka mutu, mā te upoko pakaru kei te whakatau koe i tō ake huarahi.